Yeah,
Okay.
that works. Yeah.
Thanks. All right. As you have guessed by now, our speaker tonight is Bob L. Welcome, Bob. After 15 minutes, our timer, which is Joe, will give you a buzzer warning for the last 5 minutes before your 20 minutes is up. And is whoever recording ready to start that? Yeah. All right. Cool. And go ahead, Bob.
All right. Great. Thank you, Patrick. Hi, everybody. I'm Bob. I'm a compulsive eater. Really good to be with you tonight. I came in a program November 3rd, 2003, so 16 years coming up on 17. My absence date is March 11th of 2004, so 16 years. And by the grace of my higher power, giving away 120 pounds. I do have a before picture. I'll try to show you in the camera. That's when I was roughly about 300 pounds. The scales back then really didn't go above 300 pounds, so I just stopped at 300 pounds and said that's what I was. Because you know what, it really didn't matter at that point. I didn't want to get on the scale anyway. I had a wonderful childhood at home. My parents were very supportive. But I was the youngest of 7 from an Italian family, and we ate. Come to find out later from my mother, when I asked her much later when I was in program already, I said, what was the deal with the food? Food was so important in our lives. And she said, when they were growing up, when she was a child, they didn't have much food. And when we were starting our family, we didn't have much food. So the way to show that, when they both started working, my parents, the way to show that we had some money was to offer what they didn't have, which was food. And I obliged. I ate and I ate. And when my brothers, being the youngest of 7, when my brothers and sisters moved out, I ate their portion too. But it was more than that. Very much an emotional eater. As I got older, I was very much a stress eater. So the things around me impacted me, especially work very much so. So food was always my go-to. I learned much later that when I came into OA that food was my higher power at the time, which seems almost ridiculous, but absolutely is. Food was my higher power. Money was my higher power. Sex was my higher power. Everything but God. Even though I believed in God, God wasn't my higher power. So I struggle very much with my weight throughout my childhood, throughout the yo-yo dieting. I got to the point where it didn't matter. At one point, I just couldn't diet anymore. I had a health scare. One evening, I was with friends and at a meeting, and I had a chest pain and a shooting pain down the arm, and I was really scared. I was having a heart attack, and I was young. I was very young. And the doctor just pushed on my heart, around my heart, and said, "You're not having a heart attack, you're just fat." I was like, "Thanks, doc, I appreciate that." Not like I haven't heard that before. He said the muscles around my heart were contracting and pushing against my heart. And that I was borderline high blood pressure. So he basically sent me to a nutritionist to lose weight. And, that never works. But I did learn how to eat. And I did lose 65 pounds. But of course, and I realized when I came into OA, I never really plateaued. I never really learned how to maintain my weight. I lost weight, I gained weight. I lost weight, I gained weight. And when I was losing weight, I was the good Bob. When I was gaining weight, I was the bad Bob. So it was just a game. The big book talks about, winning the game, and that was the game for me. I'm grateful I'm not playing that game anymore. And I don't need to. So fast forward into how I found OA. A friend who was in another fellowship, said when I sat on her front porch, kind of feeling very uncomfortable, not liking myself very much. She said, "What's wrong?" I said, I don't like myself very much. I'm heavy, I can't, I can't play with the kids. I was so fat. I mean, I was so heavy, it was just really upsetting. I can't stop eating. So she said, "You know what? They have a program for that." And I was like, "What?" So you mentioned Overeaters Anonymous. I was like, never heard of it. I'm not a drug addict. I don't need a 12-step program. My nephew was in a 12-step program for drugs, and I was like, "That's not me. I mean, I'm not that hardcore, man. That's all right." And little did I know, I absolutely needed it. So I went on OA.org, and I was like, "Nope, not time, not enough, not ready." So I waited 3 years until I hit the bottom, real bottom. And I woke up one morning and I just said, I got to do something. I was literally pulling the fat, rolls of fat on my stomach. And I can still envision that, and wanting, in my head to pull out some kitchen shears and just cut the fat off my body. And that was actually going to happen. Like I wasn't going to bleed to death. Right. So I never really had suicidal thoughts, but I certainly had, feelings like I just can't stand myself anymore. So it took 3 more years, but you know what? That's why when I work with somebody coming in a program, it takes what it takes. If it took me 3 years and now I'm solidly into OA and, living a great life, it takes what it takes, until we really are ready, to surrender. So I was grateful when I came in the program because I was ready. I was absolutely ready. I had nowhere else to go. I was so happy to be in a place where other people knew, our invitation to you talks about it through weakness, not strength, that binds us to each other and to a higher power, and somehow gives us the ability to do what we cannot do alone. And I really do believe that. And I do believe, in a responsibility pledge, that I have a responsibility to the newcomer and to anyone who's compulsively eating today. So when I came in the program, first meeting I went to was a great one. There was like 20 or so people. They were all women. It was me and one other guy, and we were both new. And so I didn't really know what I was doing. And these women were sharing, and I just couldn't really, I could relate to them. I really could, but I couldn't share like them. It was kind of very intimidating, and I'm an introvert. It was very hard. I've always had trouble, in those type of, rooms like that. So it took some time. When I, 4 months in, I still hadn't had a sponsor, and I had, picked up and binged on sugar. Someone at the meeting said, "You know what, I'm going to take you to where there are men there, men at a meeting, and where a sponsor, maybe you can get a sponsor there." And sure enough, she took me to Intergroup, and I learned about service, and I got a sponsor. And it started there. It really did. I surrendered to the program. I took ownership to this program, and it took off from there as soon as I started working the steps. So grateful for the steps and what they've done for me in my life. When I found what my higher power was, I found the same God, but the same God that I've been blocking all this time. So the steps really removed that block that I had established between me and my higher power. And, when it was just a lot of shame, that I had that just needed to come crashing down. It was almost like sitting on my shoulders and all on my head. And I was just so grateful when I did do my step 4, which I've recently just done again with the Step Workshop book, and it's just such a great process, to go through, to do the inventory. It's not easy, but man, when you're done and when you share it with a sponsor, it's just so fabulous. And then my favorite, steps are 6 and 7, because I was really able to look at my defects. And they're my favorite, but they're also my hardest steps, because I really had to look at who I was and who I had become. And then now to be willing to let go of these defects, which I had really needed, that was my go-to, that was. Thanks. So I had to face that and to look and say, hey, who am I going to be, when these defects are gone? But I also needed to say that what these defects did to me versus what they did for me. So when I looked at all that, I was like, you know what? I don't want these defects. I really don't. More recently, when I just went through, I'm going through the steps now. We just finished, or we're still working on step 7. I had to look at